Dear Venerable Sisters and Brother, Dhamma friends, we are going to start today's talk. May every one of you settle down and give the consent with 3 times. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Namo tasse bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhasse. Namo tasse bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhasse. Namo tasse bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhasse. Tumhe bhikkhave kullupaman dhamman desi sangājaniyāt Nissaranattaya no gahanattayāti. Dear Venerable Sisters and Brother, Dhamma friends, the particular phrase the Buddha mentioned in this particular sutta is a very remarkable one and quite a revolutionary and quite representative of the radical reflection of the Buddha. It says that one has to understand the Dhamma the Buddha has proclaimed is similar to a raft or a small boat being for the purpose of the crossover and not for the purpose of grasping. It's a very, very challenging, very, very revolutionary, unconventional kind of teaching, and amidst of all the other pragmatic parts, that phrase is included in a particular junction. So with this phrase in our mind, I would like to sum up the gist of the talks we have already given, or to give a summary of the particular Sutta known as Maha Thanhasankaya Sutta, how and what, under what circumstances the Buddha is making this revolutionary statement. The case was, there was a particular monk, he had a pernicious view or a wrong view, telling the consciousness is continuous. And that very consciousness changing from one being to the other, one life to the other, or it is the one continuing, there is no other thing, it's a permanent. And after contemporary monks at that time tried to correct him, but he was very ardent and adamant. Ultimately they complained to the Buddha, and Buddha asked that particular monk to come to the congregation and made the complaint, and he says, yes, I believe, as you taught me, the consciousness is permanent. It's the very same consciousness, going from one life to the other, one event to the other. So this is the way I understand the consciousness. Then the Buddha is asking, what do you mean by the consciousness here? He says, Vado Vedeyang Tatra Tatabi Papakanang Akusala Kusalanam Dhammanam Vipakanang Patisang Vedeti. Whenever you are talking, whenever you are feeling, or whatever the consequences you are experiencing due to the good and bad action, consciousness is the one is doing it. When you are talking, when you are feeling, or whatever the consequences of your past good and bad deeds are being performed, are being come into being, you are the consciousness is the one, it is receiving it, and that is how I understand the consciousness. Then the Buddha is asking, where and when I taught you this kind of a thing? Have you ever, if other people, other monks can witness, have I ever mentioned you, the consciousness is permanent, and that is the what make you talking, make you feeling, and receiving the past consequence of past good and the bad karmic forces. And then particular bhikkhu, sati, he can't give a substantial answer. And then the Buddha says, repetitively I have mentioned the consciousness is arising then and there. It's very momentary. And it is arising due to its due course, not without it. And there is no consciousness. Someone can say it's a mere consciousness without a cause. The causes are very momentary, as and when it arises, depending upon that particular cause and condition, consciousness arises. And that very consciousness is reckoned or called or named after that particular cause. That is how it is going. Other than that, there is nothing called mere consciousness without a cause. And the example given by the Buddha is, whenever there is a fire, it always have its own fuel. Whenever fire is burning with firewood, we call it a wood fire. Whenever it is on the chaff, we call fire chaff fire. Or any, depending on the debris or any fuel, each and every fire is named after the particular fuel, and there is nothing called mere fire. Cannot be. And then the sati, the bhikkhu, he withdraw. After withdrawing, the Buddha take the opportunity to teach the other monks in the congregation. I would add even to us, he is teaching how the consciousness is arising. When and where the visual objects or forms emanate or face-to-face with the eye, there the consciousness arises. That consciousness is, depending on the eye and the visual object, we call eye consciousness. Whenever you are listening, whereby the sounds and the eardrum come into face-to-face with or avenue with, then we call the ear consciousness, or nose, or tongue, or body, or mind consciousness. So each and every consciousness is very discreetly claimed or reckoned according to the base. So therefore, there is nothing called the mere consciousness. Whenever someone is not sharp enough to understand the particular consciousness with respect to, or with relevant with, or connected with due course, he or she may be entertaining doubts and fabricating theses or professing this and that, and uncertain about what they are talking about, and developing kind of a fear on what they are talking. So therefore, if you wish to understand the consciousness as such, not only that you must be aware discreetly and delimited way the particular consciousness at that given time, and what is the proximate cause, or what is the condition under which it is being reckoned, or proximate factor. When and where someone is sharp enough to delimit or discreetly understand the consciousness, together with its base element, or maybe with the strike element, more and more that particular person is practicing, his doubts will be rectified, uncertainty will be reduced, and there won't be anything to fear, entertain. So therefore, whenever someone is sharp enough to see them more and more with this particular the theoretical understanding or book knowledge, the little by little the doubts are rectifying, disappearing, no uncertainty. So this is how one can arrive at a decision which can be not criticized, and that can be enduring and pervading. So therefore, whenever someone is not up to that kind of observation then and there under one's very nose, the same thing can happen just like with the sati. And they hold into this kind of a pernicious views and wrong views. And the Buddha is continuing, taking the bhikkhus or the congregation of the monks as a party for the dialogue. And after giving a fair explanation about the consciousness as an aggregate, then Buddha is mentioned a being. That means not only the consciousness, it's all the five aggregates. The same very principle applicable to all the other aggregates, namely the corporeality, the body, and his or her feeling as an aggregate, or perception as an aggregate, volition as an aggregate, and this very consciousness as an aggregate. So you have to, before making a conclusion or statement, you have to look into each and every aggregate, and within that each and every experience or phenomena, they have their own due course. So that indicates, or that make a big challenge, how much thing you have to be aware under your very nose, not only the particular incident, but the proximate cause or condition. So that appear not possible within a short period of time, what we call our lifespan. It's such a big challenge. It is very difficult for a person to do it. So explaining up to that, the Buddha says, out of his own experience of the Buddha, throughout his past lives and in this very life, he says, when and where you try to see the phenomena together with its cause, the arising, I would say all the phenomena, even if it is multivarious, arising due to 4 factors or 4 groups, so that you have to keep it in your mind. It's what something teaching of the Buddha. He says 4 nutriments are there. These are the 4 nutriments and 4 groups. They become the proximate cause, and with that proximate cause, the particular aggregate arises, and that is being reckoned according to these particular 4 causes. So therefore, it's one of the core teaching of the Buddha, all the 5 aggregates arising from nothing but from these 4 nutriments called the Kabalinkara Ahara, the chewable, gross and subtle food. And the second thing is the contact, the phassa. And the third one is mano sanchetana, your own imagination or your own mental proliferation or your own volition or sometimes your will. That is also very essential for this aggregates to arise then and there. And the last one is the very consciousness. So therefore you have nothing to do experiment in the new challenging way. You can make use this knowledge for nutriments, and then you can reduce or you can make your vast experiment with the somewhat practical and pragmatic, and therefore this knowledge on the 4 nutriments is important. Each and every one of us, we know, sabbe satta aharatthitika, all the beings are depending on their food. That is a basic need. So that's a very common, obvious fact. It is not a religion. It is a fact. And it is common for all the living beings. So that's the starting point. And sabbe satta aharatthitika, all the beings are dependent upon food. That's a one truth that everyone has to understand. So with that kind of a tangible or with kind of obvious understanding. The second thing is always, as far as you are living, specifically not in a deep sleep, always have a kind of a contact. Without contacts, you can't make yourself, you can't get an orientation. You get lost. So therefore, the contact is very, very important. And that very contact is the one creating these 5 aggregates. And that's a source of suffering. And therefore, that source or that frustration or this tension or suffering is arising then and there. One thing is the food, the second thing is contact. So therefore, you have to understand the contribution of the contact, whether you know or not, whether it's a kind of a religious endeavor or whether it's your day-to-day affair. And meanwhile, you have to understand, in order to cut off suffering, or in order to do away with suffering and the frustration and the tension, if you cut off contact, it is detrimental. It is harmful. So what you have to do is, do it in a moderate way, not to complete cut off. So that is also you have to keep it in mind. For example, with regard to this kind of a contact, they have done an experiment or a research taking a just born puppies. They are born with blind eyes and covered eyes. Within 7 days, they open their eyes. And they have done one set of puppies keeping under the darkness even after they open eyes, and the control unit is exposing to the light. And after that, when they see the brain development, the puppies kept under the light even after they opened eyes, their brain development is hindered and blocked by 40% whenever comparing with the other puppies, those who are exposed to the light. So therefore the light contact or seeing is an essential part for the development of the brain. So if you keep complete in the darkness, your visual faculty never develop. So therefore, to understand, whenever we are living, we have to have a certain amount of contact. But the idea here is, or the restrainment here is, are we aware of our contact in each and every time, and how much we are extravagant, how much we are luxurious, how much you are consumerization as far as the contact is concerned. At a given time, you have to have a contact, but when you, supposing we back at home, our home is filled with visual contacts, sounds, smells, tastes, other tactile, and maybe a lot of pet ideas. And household means it's a full of all, but at a given time you are using only one. But what a waste. And there are so much of people, they don't have basic needs also. And the distribution of the wealth is utterly unfair. And we never think, is it so necessary to have so much of luxury regarding the visual objects are concerned, and sounds are concerned, smell, taste, tactile contacts and kind of thing. And we never think it is unfair. So why not accumulate as much as possible, when and where possible, if not the sounds, and we can go to the light. And if it is not, we can go to the smell, taste. And they are, who is limiting? And you are making your senses bewildered because full of contacts you know, but you don't know how much utility and how much is the luxury. The person who do not know the utility and transgressed into the luxury, when the transgression happens, he or she does not know, means he is a putujjana, he is a commoner. So he has to suffer a lot, because he is wasting so much and utility is so little. The Aryan or enlightened being means he knows the utility. He never go on self-mortification or self-torturing by not giving the basics. And if it is not enough, that is separate issue, but it's not practicing self-mortification. And whenever he goes trespassing the luxury level, unwanted level, he himself restrains. That is the way he understands the contact as a food. So therefore, when and where you know which faculty or which base element is working with particular strike element, and you are verifying, justifying, it is a basic necessity, not luxury. It is not a consumerization. Otherwise, you have to get committed and to pay for that. So therefore, each and every contact, you have to understand you are answerable. And the second thing is, the third one is your own volitional activities and daydreaming and fantasizing and your creativity. And whenever it is happening, how much it is up to the necessity or the utility and how much you are in the daydreaming, you do not know. Simply we can experience it when you come to a center, sit on your cushion and close your eyes. You can see how much daydreaming happening because it is being accustomed without a limit. We found what is wrong with my own volitional activities, what is wrong with my own daydreaming. It is my dream, it's my hobby. So you will understand its gravity whenever you try to restrain it. You can't, because this has been given so much of free license. And when you come here, and only when you as a religious being or as a meditator try to focus attention in a one particular object, you can see how much daydreaming, fantasizing. And that is related because your past habits and because you have been volitionally involved and willful activities. Ultimately you do not know that they become habitual and they will take you for a ride. You don't know. So understanding the gist of it, Arthur Schopenhauer, when he's interpreting the danger of these willful activities, he wrote a book in about 250 years ago about the will, and he mentioned each will is evil. Each will is ill will. So whatever you do, you have to do certain amount for your existence, for your security. But if you are going to do without any limit, you are the real cause for your suffering. So ultimately that make a big wave and a big disaster kind of thing in the Western psychology. Then everyone considers the Arthur Schopenhauer as a nihilist and destructive. And but he took some ideas from the Buddhist teaching, and he was one of the pioneering people introducing Buddhism to the West. And for even the traditional Buddhists, we never consider that our volitional activities, daydreaming and fantasizing make any much of a harm. But readily we reciting Sabbhe Thankhara Dukkha, Sabbhe Thankhara Anicca. This is a very common phrase. Each and every volitional activity is leading to suffering. Each and every volitional activity is leading to impermanence. So when you go deep into that, your volitional activity is not created by your God, or it is not attributable to the neighbors, and you can't say it is due to the other external factors, and you are innocent enough, it is not your own baby also. If it is so, you must have ability to stop it. When you are meditating, you can see, I wish to stop my daydreaming, fantasizing and you can't stop it. And that is the point the Buddha says. If you say, I am the culprit, I have to stop it and kind of thing, you can't. And if you are going to attribute, so it is the will of the God, or wrath of the God, or the neighbor, or the government, or the climate, no. So that means you don't know the beginning of this volitional activity. You don't know how it is performing and evolving so quickly. And you don't know how it ceases to exist. And you don't know what are the close proximate cause for that. And ultimately, that very momentum of the volitional activity, you become mere slave. And you don't know how the trends are happening. Simply we can say, the addictions. Present day, when you are starting with a little bit, ultimately you get caught up with the addictions, it becomes a national level, and you know definitely you are ruining your brain, but you can't stop it. So therefore the Buddha, here it says, this volitional activity, or mano sanchetana, it is being sometimes known as mano sankhara, sometimes as mano sanchetana, or sanchetana sankhara. In the canon, you can see as synonyms. So one has to aware how much daydreaming I am doing, but it is not just going without giving bad consequences. So therefore one has to understand your volitional activities. One can understand your volitional activities only when you are trying to apply your mind for a single object. Then you comes to know how it is like a landmine bursting, and like a floodgates open, it's going. Ultimately, you try your best to do away with, but do you have enough tools? Do you have enough understanding? Or do you have enough good approach for this kind of attitude towards the volitional activities? No. And when that kind of your food, as far as you have food, you eat it, ultimately you end up with obesity. And then can you attribute it to the person who gave food? Or are you responsible 100% about your obesity or overuse of the food? If it is so, you must have the ability to stop it. So food is something. And the contacts, we keep on accumulating all the kind of things, and ultimately the day you try to keep the attention with one single verifiable under the nose object, then you can see these all memories regarding the contacts, how much flooding you, overwhelming you, inundating you. And there you have to understand whether you like it or not. You have to take kind of a restrainment, kind of at least bookkeeping about the way the contact takes place. The Buddha gives the example, it is like a mad monkey jumping from one to the other, no agenda. As far as the volitional activities are concerned, sabbi sankhara dukkha. So in the religious circles we say, if you are thinking good, of course you will get the good results. If you are thinking the bad results, good or bad, it's a destruction, it's a disturbance for your mindfulness or your concentration. So therefore you don't know the art of restraining or controlling of the volitional activities, because it has been accustomed since unknown time. So can we, within this 100 years or short period, or we'll say within this retreat, can we put a stop for that? No. But you have to understand there is no other person responsible. You have to take responsibility. Then only you can understand these pernicious views regarding the consciousness. The Sati Bhikkhu is a very good example. He is consciousness is continuous. I have nothing to say. And it is, as far as it is continuous, I am just succumb to it and subject to it. After explaining it, then the Buddha says, all the five aggregates arising then and there along these four nutriments, And when it is happening, you may get clear little by little by rectifying doubts and get certainty when and where you apply mindfulness. All these mentioned, you can refine, you can reconfirm it. When slowly the view will be clarified, and like dirty muddy water, when settled down, you can see through it and you can see the bed of the water body, and your view, your reflection of your face, reflection will be clear. So you can, when you are peeping, you can see your face because water is very clear. Something like when it is clearing, when it is becoming calming down, that is the very junction, where is the very point the Buddha says, with that kind of a clarity of your view, are you going to take this view as me? Are you going to play with it? Are you going to enter into and say, this is my view? The Buddha says, even if it is so clarifying your doubts, even if it is so rectifying, if you are going to take this view as me, that is the wrong way you are using. That very corrected view itself, I proclaim as a raft, just to cross over, not to hold into that. So, if such a beneficial, clear view also, if we are to use only on the utility value, what about the pernicious view and the wrong view of the sati? He can't get rid of. That is the punishment. So when you are developing the counterpart, or we are developing the correct view, right from the beginning you have to understand not to hold into that, or not to entering into and claim me and mine. If it is so, you have not listened to the Dhamma with this awareness or with clear comprehension. So this statement, Kullupamang vo bhikkhave dhamman desissami nittaranathaya no gahanathaya. This is much, this has been misunderstood much by Buddhists than non-Buddhists. Many Buddhists hold into their own view, thinking this is Buddha view, thinking this is the correct view. So when I am, of course I am not a very good scholar, when I am talking with Venerable Dhammika, he happened to be an Australian monk from Melbourne, he told, no view is the correct view. Whatever the view is wrong. So when I go back and tell my mother told, don't associate that kind of monks. They are completely misleading you. You should have a correct view. Correct view you must possess. You must claim. So I don't know whether to believe Venerable Dhammika or my mother. So still I can't give a very clear-cut interpretation. Whatever it may be, when you are eating, when you are taking food, use it for the utility value. Otherwise, definitely you are going to self-mortification or overindulgence. And when it is happening, you are answerable. But the utility, don't do away with, because you have to feed yourself. As far as the contacts are concerned, it must have the utility value to the moderate value. But whenever it is go too much or too less, you have to suffer a lot. As far as your proliferation or volitional activities, will, determination, everything happens, there should have a certain amount, otherwise it's like intellectually committing suicide. So there should have a certain amount of volitional activities. It is just for the utility value. When it's too less or too much, you are answerable. Exactly the way the consciousness, to say this is me and this is not me, there should have a certain amount. But don't grasp into that, don't hold into that, then you are answerable. And not only that, you are dragged into that kind of a pernicious views and wrong views, and even if you wish, you can't get rid of, even though it is wrong. So this is the very junction at the beginning, at the point where Buddha is explaining, Kullupamang vo bhikkave dhamma desissami, nittaranattaya no gahanattaya. So among the educated circles, they learn Dhamma and they become very lucrative, and it gives PhDs and diplomas and all the kind of thing. Ultimately, whenever they go and sit, hardly any educated people come to meditation. That is one norm in the world. Whatever may be, if they have come and sit, their mind will be completely inundated with this deductive thinking and inferential thinking, and their past memories, they don't know how to handle it. This is called iatrogenic effect. Disease out of the side effects of the medicine. No way. There is no answer for that. So, whenever Buddha goes writing his Visuddhimagga, he says, Besajja samuttita rogo vyatakiccho. This disease is out of medicine, misuse of medicine, no remedy. That is what the place where today's medical science is. So much of side effects and after effects, medical science can't answer it. So Dhamma also, you have to understand the utility value and use it to the utility value. Don't make it a burden. Otherwise, when you sit, your whole memory regarding the by-hearted things will come rather than your primary object, which is verifiable, which is under your very nose. That means your direct touch become be overwhelmed by this theoretical understanding and book knowledge, and ultimately people going to say the book knowledge and understanding is negative to the meditation. But Upandita Sayadaw, he says, it's not necessarily so. You can have enormous amount of knowledge, but if you know the limit, if you know how to use it, then it is beneficial, because without theoretical understanding, you can't practice. Even if you are practicing, there is no progress. So therefore, how to balance it is much needed aspect in this Paticcasamuppada or dependent origination. Each and every aspect is to push little bit further, and then it drops. And then another part come and push little bit further, then and there it is dropping. So likewise, you have to understand the consciousness is appear like continuing, but then and there it has its own base element or strike element. If you do not know the rising and passing away of that base element, you will think it is happening so quickly, vijnana, as if a continuous thing. So not only the vijnana, the consciousness, even your volitional activities, even your contact, even your food, everything is rising and passing away. So they are the underlying tendency, so underlying principle is dependent origination. So taking this 4 nutriment as a crucial aspect in this sutta, the Buddha explained that very 4 nutriments itself arising due to its due course, due to its proximate cause. So therefore, once you reduce your all the 5 aggregates as a being, as a 5 aggregates, you attribute it to the 4 nutriment, and you have a working ground. You have a project now. Understand how the food encounter with your day-to-day life, how the contact, the passa, whenever it happens, whenever possible, try to keep bookkeeping. Whenever the volitional activity is happening, have a bookkeeping. Whenever the consciousnesses happen, have a bookkeeping, and there you can understand each and everything has its own due course or relevant proximate cause, and as the proximate cause arises, that particular aggregate arises. A very good example given by Venerable Jnanananda Katukurunde. He told, when you are using a single sewing machine, you see 2 threads are working. One thread is going up and down with the needle, As and when the needle goes down, the thread in the bobbin, put a knot and then tightening it. Each time it go down, the thread in the bobbin, down there, come and put it. And when the stitches is complete, you can have two clothes together or more clothes together. So this is putting the clothes together, stitching or the sewing is what you call samsara. So as far as whether you know or not, when the needle take the thread down, underneath bobbin is put a hook. And giving that example, he says, imagine if there is no threads in the bobbin, when you are stitching, what happens? It appears like a stitching, but it won't get knit. Ultimately, two clothes are not put in together. So this is what happened in the Arya Puggala. For them, they understand even the thread going down, underneath grabbing, underneath knitting is not happening. Even though you appear like a normal person stitching and sewing, but ultimately they are not binding each other. So therefore, each and every time there's a action in the tip of the iceberg, and there's a part underneath or subsurface, submarine, so you can't forget, you can't neglect it. And in order to see this proximate cause, the best way is to start with what is obvious, what is above, what is the tip of the iceberg. For that, again, Buddhaghosa Acharya, he says, Yatha pakatang vipassanabi niveso. When you sit, and if you wish to see things as they are, start with what is obvious. Don't worry about the unobvious thing, unconspicuous thing, unprominent thing, whatever arising. It must not be an imagination. It must not be a hallucination. It must not be a addicted drug or something like that, but it must be something pragmatic and verifiable. Start with that. When you keep on observing, you can see to arise, to start, to begin that, there's some causative factors. Without that, nothing happens. So more and more you observe what is being prominent and what is conspicuous, you have to understand the origin, the arising part of this conspicuous thing. And there you can see a lot of things, not limited to the tip of the iceberg, what is happening, and that is always spiritual. That part is always religious, so you have to understand it is happening in the double-fold way, and that principle is leading. As far as these four nutriments are concerned, I am not going to elaborate further, but I would like to recommend the Venerable Jnanaponika's book on four nutriments. Is the best writing of his whole career. It's a very small book, recently translated into Sinhala also. On the four nutriments, it's very clearly explained, starting from the very obvious thing up to the very, very subtle thing. So, giving that four nutriment is the base, or obvious and very tangible base for this arising of the five aggregates. If one can see, understand the beginning and the transition part and the end, day by day your doubts will be rectified. So more and more it is rectifying. You feel kind of a security. Otherwise, even though you are coming out with that theory, this theory, your very uncertainty is boiling you. Uncertainty is creating problem. So therefore, in the Thanhasankaya Sutta, even though it is related to the consciousness, now slowly the Buddha bringing how everything arising out of craving. Because these all the four nutriments have its own due course or proximate course. It is nothing but craving. The Buddha is asking these four nutriments, King Nidana, King Samudaya, king Pabhava, king Jatika. 4 nutriments, and what is its origination, and from where it comes. And answer is the craving, the desire. So therefore the Sati Bhikkhu is giving the topic on the consciousness. Now analyzing it, the Buddha bring it to the pivotal point of these 4 nutriments, and then he says these 4 nutriments are related with its own proximate factor, the desire. So each and every your volitional activity indicates who you are, your likings and disliking. Each and every contact, even it appears like a multivarious and you have many and feel like you can willfully change your contact, but it is not so. It is already decided before of your desire, on your likings and disliking. As far as the foods are concerned, whether it is solid or liquid or air, you feel like it is under your control, you can change it, but it is decided. Specifically, you can see when you see the food cycle for the other beings, they are specific with their food, they recognize with their food. Human beings also the same. And the consciousness also, it appears like it is permanent and it is, you can decide. It is not so. So each and every time, your likings and disliking, before giving a chance for you, it is decided before the contact happens, before the volitional activity happens, before the consciousness arises. So it is somewhat explained when Venerable Sariputta is explaining what does it mean by mentality. In the Sammaditthi Sutta, he mentioned mentality means, nama means, Vedana, Sanya, Sankhara, Phassa, Manasikara. The Phassa is the one, the contact. Before the contact happens, out of the whole range, your pleasure principle becomes forerunner and it selects for you, without asking your consent, your desire, your pleasure principle. And your recognition or cognition or whatever may be your perception is deciding before contact happen. And volitional activities happen before your contact happen. So therefore, whenever your contact happen, it decides what kind of likings and disliking you are having, what kind of cognition, recognition you are having, what kind of volitional activities happen. So therefore, if you have a bookkeeping on your contact, it gives who you are, who am I. So therefore, a person who is more familiar or more open to the subject of this contact is the only person can understand who am I. Otherwise, all the perversions, all the cheating and all the crookedness is completely gloss over the situation, and ultimately you are defending that. And more you are going to defend, ultimately you are on the falsified base and not definitely leading for your well-being. So before going to this well-being and kind of thing, the Buddha mentioned, be aware of the contact. And philosophically, when analyzing the Paticcasamuppada, of course that link is yet to come, he says that before the contact of consciousness happen, your volitional activities decide what to contact and what to be conscious about. Example given is, now we'll say we are in this institute, and if the main gate is having a guard room and a responsible guard, whenever someone is going to come in, the guard is stopping him and asking, what is the purpose of going? Who the person you wish to meet? And he discriminates, you can go in, you can't go out. So therefore, the boss inside here is meeting only the people loved by the God, not the everything. So therefore, what the combination, the boss is talking, not about the institute and the general transaction, is being decided by the God. So likewise, when the consciousness is making any kind of a comprehension, the sankhara or volitional activities are screening, so we have filtered absorption. That filtered absorption may or may not be for your well-being. It is happening due to your habitual or your karmic forces maybe, or your personality traits. So without questioning it, if you are going to say you are with the things as they are, you are with the natural combination, you are innocently say so. But it is not so, because the volitional activities have screen. So to understand that, you have to see volitional activities are progeny of the consciousness, but it is taking upper hand and allowing or stopping it. So without that, if you are going to arrive at any inference or any decision, is questionable. It is suspicious. It is subject to doubts. So how the mindfulness is going to deal this subject? How the knowledge called see things as they are going to the subject is a very, very tricky thing. For example, whenever in sitting, you feel muscle dancing, or you feel cool bubble or heat bubbles, or you feel thoughts are happening. And when it is happening, you definitely get distracted from the primary object. And then that particular distraction happen, how do you know whether it's a concept or a reality? Which is a mind-made movement, or it is a reality? You can ask others, they will say, some may say it is a reality. That means you can open eye and see whether it is muscle dance are there, or cold bubble and heat bubbles are there, or crawling animals, or like many things can happen. Or sometimes you feel it's a mind-made. So while you are observing your primary object, a lot of things are happening. When it is happening, if you leave the mindfulness and if you leave the attention to the primary object and going to analyze it, you may be rushing to a decision, but there is no assurance whether that decision is natural or fair. What is the way out? What is the answer the mindfulness is giving is, don't arrive at a decision, let it happen again and again, and in order to have that indifferent, choiceless awareness, keep your primary object in view with, and don't stop it, don't rush to a decision. That is called anupassana. Repetitive application, that the main thing you need is patience. You must be very, very tolerant and observe it. Keep your primary object as your oasis, or your pivotal point, or your reference point, or the benchmark. Let all the things happen. You are not inviting, they are just gate crashers. And let them prove by themselves rather than deciding. For example, the people suffering from the mental situations or emotional kind of thing, whenever he or she is going to fix the attention on the primary simple verifiable object, they are bombarding and coming. Nothing you allow you to see primary object consecutively 2-3 minutes or 2-3 thought moments. Because of them, you can't keep the track with. And ultimately, it's natural for that innocent person to hate that emotional bombardment or daydreaming and fantasizing. As far as you are hating them, you are completely deprived of looking at your primary object, and that hate is the food for this mental situation to thrive or fertilize, and it keep on perpetuating and in a vicious cycle. And that particular person innocently, honestly, they wanted to have the way out. But that naturally what happened is you react to that kind of thing. So much you are reacting, you are eccentric as far as the primary object is concerned. You are observing it with your hateful mind. So therefore it gets its own nutriment, mano sanchetana ahara, it grows. Ultimately it goes beyond your control. Recently I had a chance to listen to another person. He says this mental tension and this frustration or neurosis, we can say, can't live without you. They always need the base or help of your consciousness. But if you know your consciousness can live without them, that is the way you are developing the personality. They can't live without a consciousness. They can't live without a pestering a person. But the person, if he is sound enough, he can say, I can live without them. That is the way you get a distance. And then let them be there. You try as much as possible without developing hatred. Try to be with the mindfulness. And you don't think it is an unnecessary visitor. It has its own message. Let them come. But don't analyze it. Don't hate it. Just observe, telling, you bloody fellow can't live without me. I know it. But mind you, I can live without you. So this is the way you have to train yourself. I will give an example, but I don't think that I am fostering sectarianism. About a few months ago, before this Putin in Russia became very popular, there was a debate in the parliament, and some Muslim representatives, they told, as far as we, a fair amount of Muslims are living in this country, we need our own rights and we must have our own rules and regulation in order to practice it without much of a hindrances. And then Putin, he told, you are the minority. You can't live without us. But definitely, mind you, we can live without you. If you wish to be here, when you go to Roman, live like Roman. If you wish to be here, be according to our rules and regulation. We are not going to change the constitution for you. And the whole cabinet, whole parliament start clapping 5 minutes. So this is the way we have to deal whenever volitional things creep into our mind, or habitual things creep into our mind, or theoretical fantasizing and philosophical game come into mind. Take the refuge of the primary object and take it as a pivotal point. Take it as the benchmark and the solace or oasis. Not that it is attractive, not that it is going to lead, not that it is Nibbana, but take this as a refuge and then let them happen. But have a choiceless awareness. Have a fairly equally suspended attention, suspended decision. So you have not yet reached Nibbana. This is a kind of a temporary Nibbana. This is called the momentary Nibbana. You take refuge of the primary object, even though if it is bored, even if it is monotonous, even if it is not your Nibbana, you take it as a pivotal point and let all the things happen and be aware they are representing who am I, or your personality traits, or your likings and dislikings. So you have, if you to understand who am I and my likings and disliking and my personality, they are coming. But don't arrive at a decision by single observation. Let it happen again and again, and each time when they become a problem, you take refuge of your primary object. Don't refuse, don't analyze it, let them come. So when it is happening, the sign of progress is, you can see your acquaintance with the primary object is increasing, and your hateful observation to the external thing, the gate crashes, the bombarding thing is reduces. So therefore you are less tensed, you are less frustrated. Whenever it is happening, you don't know they are concepts, you don't know whether they are reality, but you know your primary object is reality. It is tangible. It is something verifiable. So that is how either you take in-breath and out-breath, or take your bodily posture and let everything happen. This is the way you let catharsis to take place. Otherwise you are ever fighting, you are dealing with them hateful. Imagine the day you let them come, not with the hate base, with the knowledge base, with the correct view, with the correct perspective. If you can look at it, this will teach you complete universe. Not only you, it is teaching you the human mind. It is not limiting to your personality. So because this everything is not happen overnight, the whole evolution, otherwise if your karmic forces to a whole trip through the samsara is a cross-section, is the present bombardment. Let it happen again and again. When it is happening, you can say, more and more you are going to analyze, you are analyzing more with the hateful mind or biased mind. Instead you take the refuge of the primary object, unhindered way, let them come. And whenever you are allowing it, your mind is non-judgmental, your mind is non-reactional, and evenly suspended attention. That does not indicate that you are not surrounded by suffering. You are surrounded, but you are not smeared by. Just like a bubble of water on the petal of a lotus, even though the water drop is there, it's completely different from the surface. So likewise you can understand, whenever they are going to, whenever the bombardment, whenever the fantasizing, daydreaming, thinking, thoughts, pain going to happen, if you are going to analyze it, later you may understand you are analyzed through hatred or negative feeling. Under such circumstances, better to be with the primary object than analyzing. And when and where your view is correct, when and where your adverting of the mind become pure, then you can understand with that you can deal with them. There you are dealing with knowledge, not with the hate. So the day it is changing from the hate base to the knowledge base, it is exactly electric. Never you can predict. It's a completely impromptu. So whenever it is happened to you, you can't give it to someone. Equally, you can't rob it from someone. You can't get it from books. You can't, by performing meritorial deeds, you can't expect them to happen. So therefore, let the thing happen, but you must understand where are the focal point that you must pay attention. But the problem is, as I tried to explain yesterday also, the primary object appear bored. Primary object appear very unattractive and monotonous. Therefore, often you feel like dealing with all the other things because they are very lucrative, very dynamic, very full of action. But you have to understand, if you are not qualified to deal them without much of hatred, better keep them aside and be aware. That is the way not only you can see the rising and passing away of the materiality, feeling, perception, volitional activities of the consciousness. And then and there you can see how hate or desire is going to give the nutriment, just like the thread in the bobbin. Each and every time the needle take the thread down, it is get hooked. Imagine if there are no threads in the bobbin, don't rush to fill it again. That is the putujjana. They try it. And then you can see all the time there are two parts. subsurface and the submarine part and the tip of the iceberg. So teaching of the Buddha is basically never underestimate tip of the iceberg. That is a starting point, but when and where you go down there, you are more concerned about the causative factors, more concerned about the conditions, and they as well as also resultant factors, they have very swift, quick changes. But then and there, it is so crispy, happening within the moment. So therefore, if you get the idea corrected, even though accumulation of your habits and things happen for so much of time, the cutting off is so sharp. When that cutting off happens, don't claim you as an enlightened, but you understand the potential or the power of mindfulness. So for a split second you can cut off. Next moment you may not be. And again, if you can get another split second whereby the trend is cut and you can see the cross-section, more and more you practice, the frequency will increase. And for that, if you wish to increase the frequency and to understand the cross-section or cut in the trend, you have to develop kind of a livelihood which is more promoting this kind of a practice. And before the livelihood, your physical activities you have to discipline. Before the physical activities, your verbal activities you have to discipline. That is the way, when and where you get your potential. You see, Dhamma is truth. It is living. And here and there you can experience it. And how to make that experience more frequent is completely related to your moral discipline, your verbal behavior, your physical behavior, and your livelihood. So even after seeing that kind of a glimpse or effective thought moment, still if you are not ready to discipline your verbal activities and the physical activities, you are the very person not respecting your practice. So that is why in a retreat like that, we keep as much as possible verbal and physical activities limited to the necessary value or necessity, and try to develop the relationship with the primary object. Of course, it is for the concentration. It is a pivotal value. That very benchmark is for the concentration. So whenever any distraction happen, you must have your pivotal value. You must have your solace. You must have your oasis, and then don't stop them. Again, let them happen. Imagine one day, while you are trying to be with the primary object as a pivotal value, you can cope up with them without hate or desire, without much of reaction, without much of judgmental mind, unwavering mind. Your pivotal value no more useful. You can do away with. But for the respect of we are not throwing away, if at all any doubt happen, you make use it. But ultimately, whenever you understand the things at their correct perspective, that you are noting of the primary object or you are dependent upon the primary object, everything becoming less and less valuable. You learn how to face with things as they are, whenever it is arising, non-judgmental, unassuming way, or without a preconceived or premeditated ideas. And then you find under such circumstances, they appear, but they will inflict any suffering. They never inflict any tension. They never inflict any frustration. So that means your mindfulness is guarding you, giving the protection. And if it is not so, you can do it again the same thing. Repetitively observation, that is called anupassana. So it is almost like vipassana. Anupassana and vipassana, the verbal expression also something like that. So don't rush to a decision that whether you are Sotapanna or Arahanto, you are whatever may be. Because it is not, you are not going to get up the whole night by one single dream. Thousands and dreams happening. Let it happen again and again. Whenever it is happening, you must know when and where. If there are any doubts, uncontrollable situation, take the refuge of your primary object. Take the refuge of your concentration. Take the refuge of the mindfulness. When and where mind is broad enough, ready to accommodate anything, that means your clear comprehension is there. Under such circumstances, don't worry about the concentration. Don't worry about the primary object. Don't worry about the mindfulness. Now the shift has been changed. Now the clear comprehension can happen. So therefore, when to use the primary object, when to apply your mind again and again with the applying thoughts, and when to have the serene, calm and concentrated situation, and when to sacrifice it and let the situation to happen in its own accord, it's a kind of a brevity. It's a kind of a radical reflection. It's a kind of a unconventional way of your presenting. So don't do it immature. Once it is mature enough, if you are not doing, still you are coming back. So therefore, when and where practicing, you must have full diligence, full alert, because the challenge, the threat is so lively, but they are momentary, only existing for a split second. So if you are successful, each and every oncoming thought moment is pure, no defilements. It's crispy clear. So what you have to do, what you are doing is you bring all the neuroses and the problems of the newly coming thought moment. Ultimately you are the person suffering. So make it clear, each and every suffering is fragile. Each and every torturing is fragile. But the mindfulness is more powerful. You can say all the suffering, all the tension and everything can't live without me, but I can live without them. So that is the Dhamma. So it is not just by the rhetoric speech, but you have to practice it. Then and there you get the confidence for that. Whenever it is happening, try to maximize it. When it is maximizing, you can say, yes, the defilements and your habits and your personality traits are well ingrained, but the mindfulness is such a sharp instrument. If you know how to use it in a pragmatic way, I would say rather in a radical way, rather against the grain way, whether you are a new meditator, old meditator, learned person, unlearned person, male, female, Buddhist, non-Buddhist, everything become irrespective. So therefore more you get the confidence without much doubt with respect to your practice, and more you to practice and be here and now, is proving and reification again and again the Dhamma. So therefore people, those who are worrying, they are always appreciating their mistakes. People, those who are cutting through, they understand my investment on Dhamma may be with a lot of mistakes, but that is the only thing I have to appreciate. So therefore only appreciate the love spots. Don't worry and talk and think about the mistakes. More and more you to think and worry the mistakes, you are going to the bad side. But instead, take the love spot and how often you can be with this peace of mind, contentment, and the moment you see this perspective, that peace of mind never leaves you. It's always with you. So may this peace with you always, with that is the blessing, or that with which I would like to sum up the today's talk. Thank you very much for listening. Whether I answer or not, independent, but you can ask the question. Samma vacha, samma kammanta, samma ajiva.
So that is not a mental action, it's a livelihood. What you are doing.
Your earnings, how much you are exploiting others or not? How much consider others as just human beings or not? I answered.
Not exactly your profession then.
Not?
Not exactly your work.
Work come under the Samma Kammanta. Samma Vacha means your verbal. Your livelihood. You know the best livelihood?
Being a monk.
Beggar. You will look down to the beggar. The begging is the best livelihood. He will say yes. They will say yes. But you consider it's a socially, it's a very low status for you to beg. So that is the endowment Buddha gave us. And together we give the title Sakya Dita, Sakya Putta. You are my sons and daughters. Take the bowl and beg, live happily. I am very sorry, I have very minority today for my side. Only the majority of you, so therefore I am not going to expand for much. It is not good for my health. Thank you very much for listening.